If you're a Neovim and Tmux user, after this video, you won't be using Tmux anymore. I'm going to show you how to use Neovim to satisfy all your terminal multiplexing needs. So if you're wondering why I'm not a fan of Neovim and Tmux together, I'm going to show you some of the reasons why Neovim and Tmux kind of suck together. So right now I have a repo set up with multiple Docker container environments sourcing specific Tmux and shell and Neovim environments. So I'm going to walk through all of these and show you why Neovim as your terminal multiplexer is a million times better than Tmux plus Neovim. So first off here, let me show you why Tmux is pretty limited. So I hop into a Tmux environment and I've got this configured with the Tmux configuration I was using back when I was using Neovim and Tmux together. So it does its best to use VI motions and try to get the window management splitting and whatnot to be as close to the key bindings that you'd expect in Neovim or Vim. And it's still so far from perfect. It's still so far. Like, for example, here, okay, to be able to move around our terminal output as if it was a Neovim buffer, we have to go into Tmux's copy mode. So that is Control B, the prefix, and opening square bracket. A pretty gross keybind, if you ask me. And now this puts us in Tmux's copy mode. So now we can move around and highlight things. I did Shift V, and now we're in kind of like a visual line mode. And so first off, right out of the gate, we've got only visual line and block mode. There's no visual mode. I can't, so if I do Control V, there we're in visual block mode. I've still got I'm able to move to the opposite corners and whatnot, but I'm not able to just press V and move around something and only highlight like one select section. So right out of the gate, we don't have that. We don't have text object support. I can't yank in between square brackets to yank all the text in between the square brackets I'm currently in between right now. If I were to write find or some other command that lists files, I wouldn't be able to Control B there. I'm not able to kind of hover over one of these files and like press go to file to open it. If there's a URL printed out in the output or a PDF or anything, I can't hover over that file path and press GX to do XTG open on that specific file path. There's no register support. I can't paste from all my registers. I can't copy into specific registers. I can't Control I, Control O, hopping back and forth as if treating terminals like files or Vim buffers. And then you have duplicated window management. You have to add a plugin just to get them to act somewhat close, but again, they're not fully close because all the commands to manage splits or panes in Tmux are different from Vim and Neovim. So you have to either memorize two or try to get them to act as close as possible. But then you're still limited by if some window management features aren't available in Tmux or vice versa, you have to live with that discontinuity. So yeah, that's why I'm not a big fan of Tmux and Neovim. Neovim can satisfy so many of your needs with being able to treat your terminal buffer, your terminal output as a Vim buffer. It's so nice. So that is the Tmux environment I've got set up, and now I will show you the some other environments. So now I'm going to walk through all of the issues that kind of are present with using Neovim out of the box for your terminal multiplexer. There are some kind of rough points, but I'm going to show you how to fix every single one of them to make it a perfect terminal multiplexer. All right. So I'm just going to exit that setup, and I'm going to enter into the first NVIM environment and show you the first issue that I find when I had to use Neovim without before knowing all of the tips and tricks. So NVIM first issue. So I'm going to hop into this terminal environment, and it just gives me no init.lua, no tmux config, nothing really. And so classic Vim in Vim, classic Vim trope, classic Vim functionality. The first problem that you run into when you're using Neovim's terminal mode. So, well, first off, to enter terminal mode, you have to type :terminal. I had it just automatically do that on NVim startup to put us in the terminal buffer. But, so the first problem when using the terminal buffer is you're stuck. You're stuck in terminal mode. Right now, I can type commands, I can ls and whatnot, but how can I escape terminal mode? Like you see at the bottom, it says terminal. How can I escape terminal mode to move through and move around the output of my terminal buffer? So by default, another gross keybind that we're gonna remap shortly to resolve this first issue, it's Control/Control-N. And now I can move around freely. And this is so incredible. We get so many benefits by using this Neovim as this terminal multiplexer. I can just go to file, and that file, and it opens it up. I can Control-O to jump back, Control-I to jump forward. If there was a PDF in this, I could hover over the PDF, the file path to the PDF, press GX and go to it. I can yank and paste. It's incredible. It's very, very, very nice. So that's so this is using Neovim as your terminal multiplexer is very nice. So the first solution to that first issue of not being able to quit terminal mode is just remapping it. I always remap it to double escape, that Control/Control-N. I remap that to double escape because I like using escape to escape a mode. It's just like the standard natural, thing for Vim users to do. So we've got first issue fix here. I just remap for terminal mode. Of course, you could also write this in beautiful Vim script as well, but I put this in L.W.A just for ease of viewing. And I remap escape to be Control/Control-N, and now I can enter the second issue environment to show you. Now when I'm in here, I can hit escape, and now I can just move around, and it's very nice. It's very, very seamless, very enjoyable experience. And so the reason I do double escape instead of single escape is if you map single escape, then any TUI application or CLI application that you want to press escape on, like nmTUI, OpenCode, LazyGit, all of the other TUIs and the CLIs that expect you to be able to hit escape, that escape will be consumed by Neovim if you don't use double escape. Granted, with double escape, you will experience a little bit of lag on pressing escape because Neovim has a little timeout period for it to determine when one escape has occurred versus two escape, because it needs to be able to determine whether one or two has happened. So there's a little timeout period. To me, that timeout is negligible. So for the benefits you get, being able to escape that terminal easily, that's always my favorite thing to do. So now let's move on to the second issue that we experience when using Neovim as a terminal multiplexer, and we're gonna show you how to get around that. So I showed you that we can just be in our terminal output and press go to file to open, say that make file. We could also then say I cd into nvim stuff and I ls, and now I want to go to file over this first issue fix.lua. But as you can see, there's an error. It's not able to find that path. That's because the Neovim instance has a present working directory, and now that's out of sync with the present working directory of the terminal. So I can type pwd here. It says nvim stuff. I can type pwd in the terminal in Neovim, and it still thinks it's in the parent directory. So to fix this, you need to kind of cover a couple areas. There are, when you kind of enter terminal mode or leave terminal mode, you could have it sync up or when you enter a new buffer or leave a new buffer, you want to sync up. And so, but also you want it to sync up when you CD in a specific directory or whatnot. So I'm going to show you how to cover all those bases so that your Neovim present working directory follows you to whichever buffer you're in. Because then also, say you have two buffers open, two terminal buffers open, one in one directory, one in the other. When you move between them, you want the global instance to follow so that all of the commands like go to file respect that, respect which terminal you're in. Yeah, so here I'm gonna show you exactly how to fix that. I'm gonna exit this first this Docker environment, and now I'm gonna show you that and stuff that second issue fix. So here, of course, we require the first issue fix, and then we create an auto command. So pretty much hook some code in to any of these events: buff enter, term leave. So the reason I do these three is term enter, term leave is when you enter and leave terminal mode, like the terminal, that like the mode, the one that's hard to escape without that first fix. So I cover those bases, but the reason I also do buff enter and then match for terminal buffers is because you could switch to a terminal buffer but not necessarily enter terminal mode, but you still want the directories to sync up. So that's why I have buff enter here as well. And yeah, so we match on the pattern of terminals. This is what the terminal buffer pattern will look like, and then we call this function on the on that event. So this will only work for Linux because it's Linux. Why would you want to use anything other than Linux? Because it uses procfs, and other operating systems don't necessarily have procfs. So it just looks up the current working directory of your specific terminal, and then so that's a symlink that points to the directory. So then we resolve that symlink and then cd into that directory if it's a directory. And yeah, so that's how I have it sync up when I'm moving in between different buffers. You also may want to cover your ground when you type cd on the command line and cd into another directory. So what you can do, there's two solutions. One, you can just kind of override what the default cd is to add behavior to tell the global Neovim instance to follow your directory, or you can configure your shell to kind of do the same thing but with a specific escape sequence. So we're going to cover that first one here. I have these config files for bash and zsh to show you. So here we have our bash one. I'll do this. So here, ignore this for now. We'll just talk about this section here. So here I'm redefining cd to call the built-in cd because cd is a bash built-in. And then I'm checking if the Unix socket envim exists, that environment variable will expand to a Unix socket and a file path to a Unix socket. And every time you start Neovim, it creates this socket that you can send commands to be able to kind of remotely control Neovim, which is super cool. And so that's what I do. I remotely control Neovim to get it to sync up. So I run nvim server on that socket, provide the socket, and then I run some vim script. I call a remote vim script expression, and that is to just change directory into the present working directory after the cd. And I call this with no hup because I run this in the background to not cause cd to lag and wait for this command to end. But if you just use the ampersand to make it a background command, then you'll get the job control, like, oh, job 1 running in the background or whatnot. It won't say it, but it'll just be like a 1 in square brackets being printed every time you cd. So I add no hup there to just kind of make sure that doesn't get printed on the output. So that's that first solution. The other solution, instead of having to do this, you can use the escape sequence 7. You can have, every time you cd, you can have your bash pretty much the same thing, but it just prints a specific escape sequence that then you can have Neovim hook into that specific request to pretty much do the same thing, and that just follow the directory. But this will also require that you to add the logic that handles that event. So that's why we have here this OC7, and so here we have another auto command that happens on terminal request events, and it's a function that just kind of parses that data, parses that present working directory from that file schema, there, and then just does some checks to make sure it's valid, and then CDs into it. And so I typically go with the first solution of using the -- server, just so that I don't have to have this extra auto command in your config. But this is what is kind of naturally supported by Neovim. This is what you'll find when you type :help terminal OCS7. You will see that this is what it will be. A little different because I changed the code a little bit to suit my coding styles more closely, but this is what they'll tell you to do to get this kind of syncing functionality. So that's the second option. We had so these are two options to fix the second issue of these present working directories becoming out of sync. And so this is the second solution, the first one being the server one, the second one being OCS7 escape sequences. But now that we're on escape sequences, it's also I also want to tell you about another escape sequence that you should add to your terminal config, and this is how you do it in Bash. In this repo, I also have advice for how to do it with ZSH, and it'll be essentially the same thing, but use the pre-command function, the predefined function that exists in ZSH. And what this does is pretty much just prints a specific escape sequence to allow you to, it's nice, it allows you to like jump between prompts. Like say you run a super long command and you just want to jump to the previous prompt in your terminal buffer. If you put this in your shell config, you can have support for that. So incredible feature, super useful, great time saver. I highly recommend you also add it to your shell config. And just another reason that makes Neovim the best terminal multiplexer, way better than Tmux. So highly recommend it. All right, so those were fixes for the second issue of Neovim as terminal multiplexer. Now let's hop into the third issue. So the third issue, I'm gonna demo it a little bit right here. Going to hop into my third issue Docker environment. And so here now, the third issue is nested Neovim. So we're already inside Neovim with a terminal inside Neovim, but say I want to use the command line to say open the makefile. It's not very nice because now we have nested Neovim instances. We have one Neovim, so we have our terminal, we have the global, the parent Neovim, the terminal, and then Neovim again. And now this isn't too pleasant because you have kind of key mapping, overlapping, the double escape. The escape doesn't get sent to the child Neovim. It gets consumed by the parent. Like if I hit escape, I'm no longer in the terminal mode, but what if I wanted those escapes to be fed to the child Neovim process? It's not ideal. So I also have a fix for this, of course. So let me just quit that. See, I had quit the child instance, and now I can quit the parent instance. So that's the third issue. My solution to this, I wrote a script that I use now to open files from the command line instead of calling Neovim, I call my custom script. It's called V. I'm gonna open my custom script with V. I'm gonna open my custom script with my custom script. And so this first portion you don't really have to pay too much attention to. It's just making sure the required tools are present and just kind of throws an error if they're not, because I want it to behave predictably. This second portion here, again, not really necessary. You don't, if you're going to replicate this, you don't necessarily need to also have this. I have this in out of a hatred for netrw. I never want to open netrw, and so I never want to accidentally call v, or like the command line, on a directory instead of a terminal. Sorry, instead of a file. So I have this check just to make sure that none of the arguments are a directory, and exit if they are, because I would hate to open a netrw file directory. And then after that, I have logic to determine whether or not I'm inside or outside of Neovim. I've had best luck using pstree and checking if nvim is in the parent. So this is kind of checking pstree, like the tree of processes of the current running process, like the $$ is the current running process, the current PID. And so I'll just so this will kind of just show all the parents of that specific process and see if Neovim's one of those parents. And so if that's true, we are inside Neovim. And then if I provided arguments, pass those arguments to Neovim. And we use the same logic here, this -- server, to send them to the global instance, the global Neovim instance, like that socket. And yeah, and then so I also have these zeros here to account for disgusting file paths that contain spaces. Gross. Yeah, and another key feature of this is that I absolutely needed this script to support xargs, so like being able to do some specific command line search using grep or find, or a series of find and grep and grep and grep or whatever, and then being able to pipe that into xargs v, so that I could be able to use xargs with the command line tool. And that's how I would do it with Neovim back when I was using the Tmux as my terminal multiplexer. So it was definitely a necessity. And so yeah, I'll demo that in just a second. So then, otherwise, if we're outside of Neovim, and no arguments were passed, I'll start up a Neovim instance with a terminal. And I always just kind of like to save the startup time to a specific file, because it doesn't hurt anybody to. And then, like, if I want to quickly see like how slow my startup time was or whatnot, I just know it's always in /temp. So it's like a nice little log, you know. And then if arguments were passed, I don't open the terminal, I open those files. And again, with the same startup argument. So that's my script V. That solves my issue of nested Neovim instances. I'm going to hop into the fourth issue environment to show you this fix applied. So now we're in here. I type V on the makefile, and now instead of the makefile opening in a nested child instance of Neovim, it opens in the global parent instance of Neovim. Incredible, absolutely amazing. I love it. So I'm just going to hop back, and now what I was talking about, being able to use xargs with Neovim. So let's do a quick little grep. Let's grep for let's just grep for ZSH in this folder. Let's do that to get rid of the specific any like .git and like other hidden files. So I just grep for ZSH. I see a couple places. Let's say I want to open all of these files. I can use grep-l, and now it shows these files. Perfect, great, that's what I wanted. And now I can xargs that into V. So this was a necessity for my script V. So I xargs it into V, and now it opened all of those files in V. So the reason this was a necessity for me is I'm often working in the Linux kernel source code, and say I'm working on a specific, let's say, for example, a GPIO controller driver, and I want to open all of the GPIO controller drivers that say use this specific function in the Linux source code. I would be able to use a pipeline of grep and like filtering with grep however I want, and then be able to xargs and pass it into my global Neovim instance. And that's a necessity for me if I'm writing like a specific like driver in the Linux kernel, I want to be able to shuffle through every single driver that's already present like a deck of cards. And this is how I can do that. So, highly recommend it. It's incredible. All right, so that was fourth issue. Oh, let me hop back into that environment to show you the fourth issue now, is sessions. Well, I guess I can't really demo that right now in this. I didn't really think that through right there. But, so another thing that people love about Tmux is sessions. Like, they want to be able to start a Tmux session on, like, say, a server and then SSH and be able to reconnect, attach, detach, and whatnot. Neovim already has that. Neovim's had that. People, and it's not Neovim sessions. People think, oh, Neovim's got sessions. You go look at the help sessions or whatever, and it shows you about session files. No. If we're talking about Tmux sessions, it's already had that. It's got that. But what Tmux calls sessions is just the server, a Tmux server running, and you have a client that you can attach to it. We already saw that Neovim has a server that we can go remote control and whatnot. So now all we need to do is attach to that server. And then that's the equivalent of Tmux sessions. So I'm going to show you the, here, make full. So those were all of the issues. So now we have all the issues resolved. I can show you a full-featured config, Neovim config that has all of these issues resolved. So this has a different version of the V script that accepts an argument called attach, and I'll show you why. So I use my script V to start a terminal instance inside Neovim, and I can escape. I can go to file and everything. I can hop out, and now I want to detach. What do? I detach. I just detach. And now I want to reattach. I V attach. Terminal sessions. Granted, it's not blatantly obvious that you can use sessions like this. So I'm gonna show you what I do for to be able to support this session management and being able to attach and whatnot. So here, let's use V to look at NVim stuff. I have a v.attach. So this is just that V script just extended a little bit further. So it's all the same stuff, we've already looked at it, but here I add in a argument that I can pass, like -a for attach. And you could expand this to use get opt or whatever to have even more complex arguments, but I just wanted a single argument because this is like the bare minimum functionality I want from that. And then if I'm inside Neovim, attach makes no sense, so exit with an error. But now if I'm outside of Neovim and attach wasn't called, keep the original behavior that I've just shown you. And then, so from here on out, we are outside of Neovim and we have passed V with the attach flag. So I find all of the Neovim sockets. I use ss-x for for Unix sockets and L for listening Unix sockets. And then I awk, and so this awk is essentially a grep and cut. It's essentially I grep for NVim and then I cut and print the fifth column. So awk's nice for if you want to do like a little cut, and a grep and cut. Awk is kind of just like a cleaner way of doing those. And yeah, so this returns all of the Unix sockets, all the file paths to the Unix sockets for Neovim. If there's no sockets, we error. If there's only one socket, we do remote UI. We call server like we have for all the other things throughout this video, and then we use -- remote UI to attach. And then if there's multiple sockets, I just send the list into FCF, and then I fuzzy find over the multiple sockets, and then I choose which one, and then if I don't select one, throw an error, and then pass it to remote UI to attach. So the one downside about that is that you don't get, say, named sessions, named servers. because it's just the socket file path, so you can't really necessarily name them. Maybe you could do something with like sim linking them, but I don't know. You'd have to extend it more. I don't have that use case. Feel free to make this suit your needs. And yeah, so that is how you can use Neovim to make it the perfect terminal multiplexer. And so just a little recap. Here, let's go make full. So a little recap. We can so now we've got our terminals that we're able to treat exactly the same as Vim files. We have full Vim motion support in the terminal. We have visual mode. We have all the other ones also that were included in Tmux. We got text object support. We have Control-I, Control-O for hopping in and out of like one buffer to another buffer and whatnot. We have go to file. Honestly, go to file has completely removed GF. Like if I find some files and I go press GF over a file, that has completely removed the need for me to have a file tree. This has rendered file trees obsolete to me. And same goes for GX. Like using GX, if a PDF was printed here, I would use GX over it, and it opens my PDF in my default PDF viewer or whatnot. Practically makes the command line launcher, such as like dmenu or whatnot, makes it obsolete to me. Like in my opinion, I don't need a command launching application anymore. I've got XDG open. I've got it integrated into Neovim. It's perfect. And yeah, and then we have Tmux like session management, showing you that. And yeah, the only downside is it requires a bit of config, but you're already the audience that's gonna be doing config anyways. So that's how to make terminal Neovim the perfect terminal multiplexer. Thank you. Like and subscribe.